Howdy everybody, it's your pal Misty. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my review of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. There will be spoilers in this review, so if you do not want spoilers, please do not watch this video yet. Watch it at whatever time is appropriate for you to watch it. However, I know multiple people watching this video could probably care less. So, except for they care about how I feel about it, not about the actual movie itself. So, with that being said, let's talk about it. So, I have been a fan of Star Wars my whole life, as long as I can remember. Sorry, that was bothering me. As long as I can remember, I've been watching Star Wars. I can remember being at my Aunt Judy and Uncle Cecil sitting in front of a TV watching A New Hope. That's sort of like Baby Yoda. Hate it, but whatever. So on my other channel, I have a video of the review from The Last Jedi, which was the last Star Wars movie. And I was one of those people who, and if you haven't seen it, you can go watch my review of it. I couldn't hardly talk about it at the time because I felt some type of way. I felt like I didn't know what was going on. It didn't feel like Star Wars. There were so many things that were so important through the whole thing that they just were like, no, it's not really important. Lightsaber, it's not important. Let's just throw it. What? Rey, you're nobody. Your parents were nobody. What? It was like just one thing after the other set up for me to just be angry about that movie a little bit. So, this movie was a Star Wars movie. It felt like a Star Wars movie. It looked like a Star Wars movie. It had some things that annoyed me a little bit, but overall, not so bad. It had a little bit too many of the "you died, oh no you didn't, you died, oh no you didn't, you died again, oh wait, no, this time you really did die, oh that's sad." Like it was a little bit fakey outy, but I mean they do that sometimes, it's suspenseful. So one of the first ones was, now I've had a whole day to think about this, and I even had last night to talk about it with Amy and her family who went to see it. So I have a lot to say. I'm going to try to make it short and keep only to the key points. So fakey outy deaths that impacted me the first time they died, before I found out they didn't really die. The first one was Chewbacca. So there's a scene where Chewbacca gets taken away in a transport. You see that transport didn't get blown up, but somehow he wasn't on that transport. He was on another transport. But when Rey blew up the transport that I thought Chewbacca was on, I had a moment. Because I was like, oops. Oops, I cursed a little bit. It was kind of silent. I'm sorry. I was like, oh man. I mean, that's all of them. Han died. Luke died. Leia's dying. She hadn't died yet, but you knew she was going to die. And then they took out Chewbacca. Oh, man, they're taking out all four of them. What are we doing right now? And then he's not dead. Oh, and you're like, oh, okay. Oh, it's fine. Nobody panic. Sure, he's not dead. He's good. Which actually turned out to be really good, because in another scene, he actually made it better for me. So, I don't even know where to begin or where to I feel like I could talk about it for like an hour, just all by myself with nobody listening and having anything to say about it. But, so, I'm just kind of going to jump all over the place as my brain goes. So, when Leia dies in this movie, first of all, I mean, she worked in the movie, and it was footage of her. It kind of had this weird halo effect, so it was obviously like reused footage of her, which I preferred, because they had scene, where they're explaining that Leia was also a Jedi and went through Jedi training and almost completed her Jedi training until she found out that her son, through the path of the Jedi, would die. So she stopped using her powers for the most part, except for when she had to save her life. But so you have all that, right? And so there's this point where Leia pretty much uses what's left of her Force powers to convert Ben back to Ben from Kylo, who's her son, and Hans. Her and Hans' son, in case you haven't been with us yet. So so she dies. And I was just sort of like, well, that's a shame. I don't know. I didn't really feel it at the time. Because, Carrie Fisher's been gone now for, gosh, what? Almost 3 years? Has it been 3 years that she's been gone? Wow. Anyway, but, so there's a scene with Chewie when they all come back, the new four, right? Rey, Finn, Poe, and Chewie. Now, they're the four. So it definitely has that, reminiscent callback to the previous movies and everything. But I'm trying not to say it without crying, so I keep trying to get around it to not talk about it. But so there's this scene anyway, so I may just cry just a little bit. Sorry, but there's this scene where when Chewie finds out that she died, and he just loses his mind, and then I almost cried. I was like, whoa. She was the last one for him, so it was sad. It was really sad. So I'm glad that they did the fake Chewie death, because you don't want Chewie to die. And then Chewie freaks out when Leia dies, and she was the last one. But really, Chewie's dead too, because Peter Mayhew also passed away. Okay, so moving on. That was a really good scene. Even though it was, a call of the fakey outie. There's a scene where Rey goes to get rid of the lightsaber, and then you see Force Ghost Luke, and he grabs the lightsaber, because of course it's important. And then he leads her to Leia's lightsaber, because at the end of the day, even though in the second one he threw it away, dude, I don't understand why they did that. I hate that. Anyway, she needs both of them to defeat the Emperor. Okay, so the Emperor, right? So here's another thing that ended up being kind of cool about the movies. I'm all over the place. Y'all are going to have to forgive me. And I've kind of thought about how I wanted to talk about it, and then I just went out the window. But so one thing that I do like now that it's done is when it comes to the Emperor. Because now, as someone who had never seen the movies, okay, first of all, there's still going to be a big debate. Do you watch them 1 through 9, or do you watch them in the order they were released? And I think absolutely you have to watch them in the order they were released. George Lucas probably says that's not true, and if he does, I'm just going to disagree. Anybody who says watch them in 1 through 9, don't do that. Don't listen to those people. They're not Star Wars fans. Even though it's like common now, everybody knows that Darth is Luke's father. Like, you have to watch that story to care about the prequels. Like, this movie was so much more a Star Wars movie than the prequels for me. Like, that's the truth. But you have to have those stories to care, in my opinion. So, and the story of the rise of Darth Vader is interesting. It's a good story. You just don't need it first. So, there's that. Anyway. But the kind of cool thing of it is, if you think of the movies from beginning to end, it's Palpatine the whole time. It was always Palpatine. From the very beginning. He's been your bad guy. Not Darth Vader. Not Kylo Ren. The Emperor. Of course it was the Emperor. Of course. Why? Where was I? I don't know. That was kind of impressive. So, let me back up just a minute to tell you one of the biggest spoilers of the movie is Rey, who is nobody, whose parents are nobody, and it doesn't matter who your parents are. She was Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter. What? I went... So, that makes your parents somebody. Stupid. Makes me mad. Anyway, so Rey is a Palpatine. That's how she's so strong. That's how she's so powerful. It was all masterminded by the Emperor. The Emperor, man, there's this scene where you're like, everybody for the last 2 movies, including me, is like, who is Snoke? Where did he come from? How did Kylo Ren just kill him so easy when he was so much obviously more powerful? It was just like, well, of course, because Ben was a Skywalker. He was Darth Vader's grandson. She's Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter. Of course, she went immediately to the dark side when Luke first started training her. She was Palpatine. What you want her to do? Like, she's got to learn, right? She's got to choose. And then, of course, she ends up using Luke and Leia's lightsaber to kill the Emperor. Maybe, because he didn't die yet. It's another fake reality in case they want to do it again. But anyway, so she uses both of the lightsabers. She crosses them to shoot back his energy blast. So there's that. So those are the big things. She's a Palpatine. Everything did matter. It all makes sense. So I don't hate the second movie as much anymore. And I don't hate the second movie as much because it all worked out in the end. But I kind of hate the second one because why did we have to go through that? That's my opinion. But when you look at it as a sense of here's what you know, here's what we have established, then in the second movie we're going to leave you with just a whole bunch of questions and kind of make all the actual Star Wars fans really mad. Now, from what I gathered, people who weren't really big fans really enjoyed the movie. And they thought it was great, and I feel like every big Star Wars fan that I talked to kind of hated it a little bit. I mean, we still liked the movie. It's a Star Wars movie. Of course, it was still a good movie, but it just, for us, it was like, it made us all feel some type of way. And now that all that has been answered, it was like, did they do that on purpose? Because that seems kind of mean to do to us on purpose. Because there's also people who say it was because they changed directors of the second film and it wasn't J.J. Abrams, and now this one has gone back to J.J. Abrams, and so was that part of the reason why, they went a different direction? I honestly don't have any idea, but I'm just going to think of it as they did that on purpose, just to make us mad a little bit, to make this one so much, because there were so many times in this movie where, and what was really kind of weird was the movie was really quiet. Like, there wasn't a bunch of people talking. It was really quiet. Except for one scene. So there's this scene, another big spoiler scene, where after Ben gets converted, and then Rey dies, and then he uses the Force power to bring her back, which they all learned from Baby Yoda, whatever. We're not even going to talk about that right now, but anyway, so he brings her back to life, and then she kisses him. And about half my audience was obviously fans, are shipped, as they say in the new younger crowd lingo, Kylo and Rey, because they hooped and said, woo! They were so excited that they kissed. I didn't care, whatever. Of course, they were kind of meant to be together, right? They were opposing diodes, dichotomy, there was something that they said that the two of them were together with their life force. And I'm assuming that's because she had saved his life also earlier. She basically saved his life twice, except for the second time he died and he didn't come back. Anyway, so there's that. Let's not talk about that. Let's forget about that. Let's move on. Whew. So there were so many times where you're just like, Yes. Yes. Yes, that makes so much sense. Yes, that closes this hole that I felt like I had. Yes, it was a good ending. So, at the very end of the movie, big spoiler, because you're all sitting there, and, oh, wait, I didn't even tell you that Han comes back as a memory. That was one of the yes scenes, because anybody who is a fan of Han Solo and Leia's relationship knows that the ultimate scene between them was really not even supposed to be the way the scene happened, but because of him, anyway, there's all this backlog history of how Harrison Ford didn't ever feel comfortable with the scene, and then they have the I love you, and then he replies, I know. And so then in this movie, I think when Harrison Ford dies, this may make me cry. It doesn't make me cry right now because he's not really dead, but it may make me cry if I watch it again once he dies. But there's this scene where Kylo is remembering his dad. He's not a Force ghost. He's definitely, like, he looks like a person. I mean, like Han Solo, Harrison Ford, whatever. So you see him and he calls back. And then there's this scene where, and he's turning back to the light side. And, and again, reminiscent to the first movie, I don't know if I can do it. And so Kylo looks at him and goes, Dad. And then Harrison responds, I know. Yes, this is so good. It's like such a good scene. Anyway, so you're there at the last of the movie, and Luke is dead. Han has been dead. And this one, Leia dies. And then Ben dies. And the movie's called The Rise of Skywalker. What? Where? And then the very end, well, actually, earlier in the movie, they set it up. So, like, why I didn't see it coming, I felt kind of mad about myself. Kind of mad at myself for not catching it. But earlier in the movie, somebody asked her what her name is, and she says Rey. And they're like, well, what's your, like your family name, your surname, or whatever? And she's like, it's just Rey. Because her parents were nobody, except for, spoiler alert, they weren't. They were Palpatines. Anyway, whatever. So now you're at the very end of the movie. She's on Tatooine with the 2 moons or planets. I think they're moons. I'm so into it right now. I can't think of all my lore properly. Anyway, so somebody stops her and she's like, what's your name? And she says Rey. And she's like, what's your, your family name? And so then you see, I'll cry again. Then you see the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia. And so she says Skywalker. So it's The Rise of Skywalker. This has been a really long review. And I don't think I've reviewed it, but just got out a whole bunch of things about the way that I felt about it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging in there. Now, would you like to know what I get it? I mean, there were a bunch of things that did kind of irritate me. Like the whole, fakey howdy death people. When they were doing, I don't think I ever circled back around to that, or I got distracted somewhere in the middle. Surprise. They were talking about Luke and Leia in their Jedi training when Leia finds out that her being a Jedi will cause Ben's death, whatever. But they do this flashback and it's really cool, and it's them. There's the green saber, the blue saber. They've just introduced Leia's, the hilt to her lightsaber, so you know that it's her and Luke, and then they do the CGI thing. And Luke looked decent. It looked like kind of like Luke. Leia's CGI always looks so scary when they age her down. Why did you even need to do that? Why? We knew who it was. You said in the thought of the memory from Luke who it was. You knew it was them. Why'd you have to and open the shield and show weird looking scary people? Don't do that. Don't do that anymore. They said they're not going to do that anymore, but they did it in this movie. So maybe they're not going to do it anymore after that. But I don't know. Anyway, so there were things about it that bothered me. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a 9.5. Kind of want to say 9.25 because there's just a couple of things, but that's because I'm a big fan and we all kind of want our own thing, and then that doesn't happen and then you have to live with it, but whatever. But 9.5. 4.75 out of 5. Just in case you're keeping track on both scales. So, thank you again for listening to my review. I think my reviews are really more recaps. Now that I think about it. I'm just recapping how I felt about the movie as I go through it. But anyway, either way, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. We're coming quickly upon Christmas. So, I'm excited for that. I think that's all. I feel exhausted now because I talked about it. I have so much more to say, but I'm not going to say anything else, and that's my review. It's a 9.5, 4.75 out of 5, however you want to do the scale. 95 out of 100. I don't know. Don't make it complicated, Misty. So, with that being said, like this video if you haven't already. Especially if you made it all the way through. You better take 2 seconds and give this one a like, because I appreciate you hanging in there. Subscribe if you know how, and comment down below, what did you think of the new Star Wars movie? What did you think of all of them? What do you think the watch order should be? Any of those things, feel free to comment them down below, because I'm sure over the next few weeks, I'm probably going to be talking about them. Not that anybody cares, but who knows? Maybe one day somebody will be a big Star Wars fan and they will come back and they'll be like, oh, that's how Misty thought. That's interesting. I never thought about it that way. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, until next time, I'll see y'all real soon.